Welcome to the Digital Edge, where we sit down with industry leaders to discuss the innovations and ideas shaping the future of marketing. I'm Lisa Morton, Incubeta's Group Marketing Director, and today we're turning our focus to creative and the constant role it plays in driving sustainable business growth. Joining me today is Vanessa Bolosier, Incubeta's Creative Strategy Director, and Jessica Hondolero, VP Creative Solutions at Clinch, an AI-powered advertising technology company, a valued creative partner of Incubeta. Both at the forefront of creative execution, Vanessa and Jessica will be exploring creative solutions that take marketing from cost center to profit center, helping businesses grow, accelerate, and thrive. So let's dive in. Welcome, Vanessa and Jessica.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here today. You guys are both hard hitters and creative. I'm very excited about this conversation. So to kick off, could you paint us a picture of your role as a Creative Strategy Director and VP of Creative Solutions and the opportunities you're exploring with creative at the moment? Shall we kick off with you, Jessica?
Sure. So I help clients develop effective strategies tailored to their needs and create optimized plans to achieve their goals. So the types of opportunities we're exploring with creative are helping our clients really understand the value of creative personalization, testing and optimization, and then doing it with a data-driven approach. So too many clients really take a scattershot approach, hoping for meaningful results without a clear strategy. And while there's a strong urge to test all the time, it's really crucial to remind them first to define their why.
Brilliant. Now, Vanessa, you kind of come from this from a different side as Creative Strategy Director. How do you see things differently? Where do you overlap?
I think the idea of articulating the value is definitely something that I share with Jessica. My job is making sure that creative is never seen as an expense. It's about making creative work harder, smarter, and I think more than anything and more importantly, delivering the results that like your CFOs or your CMOs or your CEOs can't ignore. And I think it's not about creativity for creative's sake. It's about connecting creative strategy with real business impact and not making creative that just wins awards or wins in the boardroom, but actually wins in real time in market. And that's my job. My job is to deliver that.
It's really interesting because you both look at creative in terms of growth and what it can achieve from a commercial point of view. But modern marketing has become increasingly complex. I think if you think about what marketing leaders go through today, there's just a lot of stress there and a lot of new levers to be pulled and different levers to be pulled. What challenges are really holding brands back from creative excellence?
I think the biggest thing that's holding brands back is that brands are addicted to short-termism, and I don't know whether that's even a real word, but like short-termism, like they're short-termist, and it's all about efficiency metrics. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong, but I think optimizing for what works today, it kind of like forgets about the fact that like brand equity compounds over time, right? Creative needs that consistency to deliver, and I think the fact that like loads of brands are like approaching creative as campaign outputs rather than that sort of strategic business input. I think that's why when budget cuts are happening, creative gets cut the first, because again, like what are we proving? And I think the biggest enemy of great creative isn't necessarily that brands have bad ideas. I think it's fear. And if you build on top of like all of like the modern marketing challenges and the fact that like, strategic business input is not there, and the fact that like brands are fearful, and when I say fearful, it's about fear of standing out or fear of doing something different. It's that sort of like vanilla creative problem. Marketers want bold and they want all of these great ideas, but they're often afraid to back them up. And to me, by playing it safe, is the fastest way to be ignored. So if you want to be ignored, be safe. And to me, these are the things that are sort of like all in the mix of brands being held back from creative profitability and creative excellence.
Jessica, what are you seeing from your side?
I think like one major challenge is just the sheer number of advertising channels. It really makes it difficult for marketers to focus their efforts and allocate the right expertise, knowledge, and staffing to activate effectively, right? So I think leveraging technology is the key to navigating this complexity. And, additionally, marketers struggle with knowing just where to direct those efforts, right? Especially as audience preferences, consumer behaviors continue to shift. And then you have economic pressures, as an example, also creating those spending roadblocks, just as, Vanessa mentioned. And it really limits that creative investment. And then finally, personalization just remains a challenge for people, not just in understanding its potential, but also in the misconception that it's just too complex or costly to implement. And I think many marketers need guidance on how to sort of operationalize personalization effectively within their teams. But it's also why partnering with technology partners that offer both cutting edge solutions and expert support is really essential for marketers striving for that excellence. And I totally agree with what you were saying earlier, Vanessa, just about people being afraid. It mirrors life in a way, right? It's like if you're going to be safe and you're just going to sit out there and you're not going to make a move and you're not going to take risk, the reward is not as large. If like people always say like bigger risk, bigger reward. And I think that is entirely true with these types of situations too.
You both brought up really interesting points. And so I'm going to come back and I'm going to pull out things from each. But I think let's start with Vanessa. You had a really interesting point about this fear of standing out. And a lot of the ads that are coming through are just kind of a bit dull. Or way to the other side, as per the Super Bowl, some of the Super Bowl commercials that came out this year. But how do you get that balance right?
That's a very good question. I suppose if you want to win, today at least, I think you need to, and I don't want to like reiterate what loads of like marketing leaders are hearing, but it's about designing creative for the platform, for the audience, but also for the moment. And I think, and to Jessica's point, like technology helps us scale in this way and in a way that we could never before. But I think more than anything, the human craft behind it is what makes it work. And to this point, if a brand's creative can be swapped for competitors and no one notices, that means they've already lost, right? So it's not so much about like standing out and being loud. I think it's about being distinct. And I think distinction comes from owning a creative edge that no one else can replicate, and then using everything that's at our disposal to scale in a way that's meaningful. So like not stop, like, you stop chasing efficiency at the cost of effectiveness. Like you invest in creative intelligence and you let AI help you find what works, and then you double down on that. And then obviously you platform relevant, you culturally relevant, you're not reactive. And I think it's about like leading, not following, and making sure that you are distinct.
Vanessa, like what you said leads really well into the stuff that Jessica was talking about. Operationalizing personalization, creating these efficiencies and effectivenesses on the right channel, having the right technology partner. How do you find that partner? Should you be looking for?
When we were talking about like you're not just using technology to use technology for the sake of it, right? So doing your research before you launch a campaign to understand who that target audience is, like who are we even trying to speak to? We see too many clients just like throw things into a void sometimes. But our CEO Oz often says your advertising dollar doubles as a research dollar, meaning it's just absolutely foolish to not leverage digital mediums that are relatively low lift cost, but high impact in terms of insights generated. So for an example, let me give you an example of a client that we worked with. A well-known CPG client partnered with us to launch campaigns for their Spike Seltzer line. They were able to gather valuable insights on which flavors resonated most with consumers. And this allowed them to refine their next wave of advertising in multiple channels. And connections must be made really at an ethical and or emotional level to foster loyalty and recognition. Otherwise, the risk is being seen as interchangeable with every similar brand on the market, just as Vanessa was saying. And then, you can take a data-driven approach to this, but in a smart way. So are you effectively leveraging the insights that you've gathered to inform your marketing decisions? Every marketer should be continuously optimizing their efforts. They're often sitting on a wealth of data that can guide them. This may mean maybe even reusing high-performing content. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. But that doesn't mean you just keep doing it. Instead, consider using it as a control to measure and refine future strategies that you're taking on. I've worked with some clients before that things are going great, and they'll just say, let's just change it. And it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't change everything. But, you can be bold, but you also should have that control, as I was saying before. Having a control group to test again, treating it to a degree like a science experiment is never a bad idea, right?
It's interesting because we know for some people, marketing budgets are being squeezed. You're being asked to do more with less. And often I find what gets pulled is this kind of research and measurement side of marketing. Have you experienced that with the people that you've been working with? Is that something that kind of comes up where you need to justify the cost of the creative that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. To Vanessa's point, creative is like sort of the first thing that gets let go sometimes, and people will just sort of do what's comfortable to them without taking opportunities that are really sitting right there in their face. And we'll be like, hey, you have pixels placed. You have the ability, who your audiences are. Why are you giving them all the same exact messages that don't even mean anything to them? You're wasting your money. In fact, like you're trying to save, but you're doing the opposite of it in the process.
Vanessa, from your side, because we work quite closely together, how have you kind of overcome these questions and challenges to the value of marketing, or not just marketing, creative very specifically?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, these are conversations that are ongoing. And don't forget, I've also worked on both sides. So I've been the person asked to articulate the value of creative in front of boards and CFOs. And I think, the way I've put it in the past and the way I still put it is that creative isn't a cost. It's compound interest. And if you think about it, like when you invest in the right creative strategy, it keeps paying off. And it's been proven, like we have the evidence. Creative drives better brand recall, stronger conversion rate. It helps more efficient media spend. And more importantly, it actually drives sales performance and ROI. It's been proven. So I suppose the fact that like loads of brands are focusing on performance without realizing that creative is the biggest performance lever is baffling. And again, it's been proven. I think that it was a piece of research called the multiplier effect that showed that brands that invested in equity-led creativity saw massive returns on sales. So my thing is that it is, if anyone is questioning, creative spend, the real question is, how is it that we've not managed to prove its value better? And that's why I use that analogy, that financial analogy of creative isn't a cost, it's compound interest, and you have to invest properly.
What kind of metrics should marketers be looking at for the performance of their creatives?
Well, I think, performance metrics like engagement and conversions are really essential for evaluating marketing effectiveness. There are new metrics that should matter, right? Measuring those operational efficiencies as a powerful way to demonstrate marketing's true value. This can include things like creative versioning, speed to market, and automating previously tedious or error-prone tasks, such as trafficking. Ultimately, it's about understanding how your efforts are driving not just awareness, but tangible improvements to the bottom line. So you're not just doing it to do it. You don't want to just make 300 variations because you can. You want to do it because you want to reach a specific user and or audience in a way that connects with them and gets them to actually convert or show that brand loyalty to you. I think sometimes people they struggle to bring those two things together and instead focus on maybe one or the other, right?
No, and Jessica, that's so on point. But I think adding to that, I think there's three things that I always obviously mention. It's the concept of creative elasticity. So really, how long does your best performing creative keeps delivering ROI? Because again, you can map your creative to ROI. It's just looking at the right metrics. There's also the idea of like brand distinctiveness, going back to our point about vanilla creative being out and really driving that distinctiveness. Are people recognizing or recalling your brand faster than your competitors, and measuring that and making sure that that's anchored? Because again, that is also what will drive your customer lifetime value, for instance. And then looking at actual sales uplift from high performing creative and really correlating the two. Because again, if you're able to like correlate revenue impact to your top creative, then that's how you articulate the value of creative in the boardroom. And that's how you're able to defend your budgets and really show that creative does drive business impact.
100%. And I couldn't agree more with those. It's a challenge that every marketer faces at some point, having to defend their budgets, whether that be for creative or media. It's that insight behind it to understand what it's actually achieving for you for your bottom line. Now, when it comes to creative, we talk a lot about this combination of art and science. And you've both really hit on this very well. Vanessa, you talked about this human factor and how important that is. And Jessica, you talked about the technology behind it and how it's so important to helping you be on those right channels and get your content out there in the right way. But what does this actually mean, and why is it so important that these two things come together?
I think, very simply put, combining art and science means using data to inform and enhance your creativity, right? So in a sea of information and distractions, it's crucial to craft creative that stands out and resonates with the audience, just as we've been saying, right? And the goal is really to improve that overall performance. And we've proven as an industry, I think, that relevance drives results. And when creativity is aligned with data, it leads to stronger engagement and higher impact.
I love the way you said that. Relevance drives results. It's so clear and to the point and so true. Vanessa, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is the sort of art and science conundrum. It's really about, it's quantifying your intuition. It's blending human instinct with machine intelligence. So the way I see it is like, and I love food and I love cooking. It's like AI is your sous chef, right? It preps the ingredients, it refines the recipes, but it still takes a human to plate up something unforgettable, right? Like it's like literally you've got a magic formula. The magic formula is human instinct, AI precision, and it gives you creative that performs. And I think that's what we mean by that. And to Jessica's point, it's about the craft, it's about the relevance. But again, like, how are you making this calculated risk? How are you making these creative decisions? And that's what I mean by quantifying your intuition, being able to take these calculated risks with, the craft that you own, but also with the data. And more than the data, not being data rich and insight poor. And I think that's also something that you mentioned earlier about like brands sitting on a lot of data. Where are the insights? And how are we using that to drive better creative and drive better performance? I think that's also quite important.
On that point, Vanessa, you talked about being data rich. So if you had to give one first step or one important tip to those marketers to start using data-driven marketing for their creative process, what would that be?
Use the insight, but use the insight in a way that's meaningful and strategic. Again, going back to, being short term, it's like a business strategic input. How is this data and are these insights informing our business strategy, and how do we support that with creative? And I think that's what I would say. But I've said a lot. So if anything, if we have to remember one thing, is stop being data reactive and stop looking in the rearview mirror. That's my piece of advice.
Thanks, Vanessa. Jessica, from a technology point of view, how do you see data playing its part in this process? And what should people really be doing to take that data to the next step?
Well, first, I just wanted to say for Vanessa, she mentions the human aspect of it. And too many clients will be like, oh, I have this machine to do it for me now. I can get rid of my team. And I don't need somebody to like really think about this. And that is so far from the truth, because I mean, if you relate it to like just sports, let's say, you don't wait for somebody to tackle you in football before you do something. You read the room, or you read the field, and you see what's happening, and then you make your calculated sort of actions as you're going to, based on what you're seeing happening, along with whatever information you've been given beforehand and whatever you've studied, right? But I think implementing data-driven marketing goes just beyond creating visually appealing content. It's about using creative as a tool. Vanessa dived into this to differentiate your brand and connect meaningfully with your audience. That does involve leveraging the data, but that's things like third-party sources. Maybe it's dynamic feeds to ensure your creative is relevant and impactful. And a successful execution really means aligning visuals with storytelling that resonates, whether, maybe you're doing it through surveys. It could be gamifying experiences or other interactive methods. And then additionally, it's really important to properly weigh those performance metrics, recognizing that engagement types like shares may carry more value than likes, even if they generate lower volume. And Vanessa was talking about this earlier. It's about the long game. Sometimes you may not get the results that you're looking for immediately from like a single campaign, but you're gaining that brand recognition over time. You're gaining these people that are going to sort of like build upon what you're showing them. It's not just immediate in those cases.
It's interesting because I was going to ask you about what the future of creative looks like. What are the trends we should expect? But I'm now wondering, based on what you said, whether or not the future of creative is just doing the things that we can currently do but aren't. Is that kind of the next step? Is, hey, let's just get predictive. We have the capabilities. Why aren't we doing it?
I think it's, we've been talking about this a bit, but the future of creative is really heavily influenced by AI, right? Particularly in the realm of automation. And while AI can accelerate creative processes, it can enable faster production, personalization at scale, helping marketers deliver tailored content more efficiently. But as marketers embrace, let's say, an omni-channel approach, right? We see a more seamless, connected user journey across multiple channels and devices, ensuring consistency and relevance at every touch point. And on the social front, trends are really shifting toward things like micro content, like shorter form videos, TikTok, Instagram, it could be YouTube Shorts. And this faster paced content is designed to engage users more quickly with a strong focus on storytelling. And we can all agree that this trend is already underway. But really the next step will be for brands to personalize these short form videos even further, leveraging strategic storytelling to really better connect with audiences and keep them engaged. And marketers should start preparing by adopting AI tools to streamline creative processes. They can then focus on cross-channel consistency and experimenting with micro-content strategies to stay ahead of the curve.
You touched on omni-channel. Now, I've been working for Incubeta for over 10 years now. I think I've been talking about omni-channel for at least the past 8. It's still something that we're struggling with. And now we've got this incredible tool with AI. You touched on it. AI is really going to allow us to make a difference here. Are we seeing that already, or is this something we really need people to drive home?
Listen, I don't know whether it's something that and I can take my experience as a consumer to say that it's not something that's happening as much as it should. I'd say maybe 10% of brands are actually doing this, and they're doing it right. For me, and going back to your question about the future of creative, I think it's all about self-optimization, and I think it's that platform native. It's that platform native approach. It's business driven, but it's that real time, personalizes at scale. And I think this is like almost like buzzwordy, but like it feels like we've been saying personalization at scale for like 10 years, but no one's really doing it. But I think it's also creative that like proves its value of data. And going back to your question, I think the reason why we're not really seeing that omni-channel approach is because, again, people still think about creative from a sort of campaign-based perspective. They're not thinking about it as like a business multiplier that that can get continuously optimized, that's always learning. And that's where AI comes in. That's where technology becomes that second brain for marketers. Because again, like you can make this decision faster. You can predict performance. And you can scale creative without sacrificing quality. But somehow, we've kind of made AI a thing around production and around like cost saving and around efficiency. But we're not really driving home the message that you can literally have self-learning, self-optimizing, and even self-producing creative. And that's all powered by tech and AI. So to your point, I think maybe we haven't done it in the last 8 years because, again, cost, speed, scale, quality was, a challenge for brands. But now that we have this technology, this is what we need to start doing. We need to start leveraging what exists, and we need to do it in a strategic way. And again, proving why we must do it with data, the data that's sitting there and that we're not using.
I think it's really, really important for us to reiterate that how critical omnichannel is for connectivity across all fronts. That's creative, audience, media, data, everything that we could possibly be thinking about. It's for applications beyond creative work, such as performance analysis, quality assurance, automating feedback processes. At its core, AI can be used to handle time-consuming tasks more efficiently. You could free up valuable resources for strategic decision-making, bringing in that human element, right? Like you were saying before, Vanessa, optimizing overall marketing efforts. You can just enhance the overall productivity and drive smarter outcomes rather than only focusing on the creative side. And at Clinch, we're doubling down in AI, right? For practical applications by integrating these features directly into our operational ecosystem of our platform. And this will not only enhance our workflows, but will also provide our clients with the powerful tools to optimize their operations. So, everything that you could possibly think of that it takes to get you off the ground and launch a campaign, even those everyday tasks, those are the things that we're considering. And we're not just thinking about, creative in bulk.
Now, we see that the technology is there now and it is all possible. So what is it that's really holding us back?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like a client we see clients that are basically, they're maybe using it in one place or another, but they're kind of not doing it 100% of the way. We just recently started running some clients through a beta of our platform to basically try it out for not just, to effectively scale creative, but to also help them build sample strategies that they can then refine in the platform. There's a lot of great feedback from that, but we don't see anybody like 100% leaning into it because people are scared, right? One, they're afraid that AI is going to take their job, when in fact, I think the story here is that people that learn to use AI will have a one-up over the person that doesn't want to use it at all. But, to Vanessa's point, it's not going to do everything for you. You need somebody that's intuitive, that understands what they're doing, that has a drive to like really succeed in being successful in their attempt, to make their brand great. And I think that we have a little bit of a way to go still, right? Like people, we want to say people need to see it proven out, but in reality, it's there. It's just people really haven't learned to use it to their benefit.
Now, we've really jumped into AI. It's one of those topics that is almost in every article that you see out in the news at the moment. And nearly every RFI today has a box to check what what AI tools are you using? How are you going to be bringing this to our business? But not many people seem to be prioritizing it, let alone acting through their partnerships. How should they be thinking about AI beyond common creative applications?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, it's almost like one of those commercials that you kind of see over and over again. And you're just like, oh, AI again. Oh, my goodness. But we really are enjoying just all of the applications that we're seeing for it, or excuse me, from it in our platform. And as are people that, are using the platform, but just our internal folks that are utilizing it. They're really excited about it too. I mentioned earlier just this idea of, a simple task that I could be doing in regards to QA. Perhaps I want to know if, maybe I have like what we've referred to in creative as like widows or an orphan piece of copy in a creative. Like, what if AI could tell me that that was there instead of like a person having to look at it or identify maybe if like a brand color wasn't being used across a creative and somebody got like a hex value wrong. Being able to see those things and have them sort of like bubbled up to me with AI are just really great applications of being able to use it beyond just sort of the day-to-day things of like, oh, build me some headlines. Maybe it's something like that.
And we've actually seen that in the way that we deliver creative. So Jessica, that's why we're partners. That's why we're partnering with Clinch, right? We've seen that beyond, again, your typical like speeding up production. If you think about like our workflows and from brief all the way to deployment and instant measurement, it's anything from like using AI as an ideation partner, using AI for our audience insights. So if you think about the fact that you have to be audience first, looking at like synthetic audiences, for instance, or just anything from like using AI to storyboard. So like a storyboard that would take you 4 days now takes you like 4 hours. Asset composition, we use it to create tracks for music when it comes to like creative. But again, like, and beyond that, because it's still very much conceptualization, or it's still very much around the creation of the asset, what we're trying to really convey with the way that like we think about AI is creative decisions, being able to optimize in real time. It's about like almost imagine if you had like an AI powered dashboard, and you look at creative and it recommends improvements. It predicts what will work. It scales the best ideas across every channel, going back to the omni-channel point. I think this is where we see AI really adding value beyond, the sort of like efficiency, like looking at really like what's ahead and being able to predict what's ahead and doing that at scale for every single channel, for every single audience, bringing it to the very personal level. And I think that's the way I'm seeing it, and that's what I'm hoping the future holds, and that's what we'll leverage.
You mentioned dashboards earlier, and it got me to thinking. Our dev team, they basically did like a hackathon, and one of the things that one of the guys did, which I thought was great because our CEO showed us a video of it later, is the guys built into we have like this AI feature built into our platform that we call Copilot. And they basically showed us a person coming into a campaign that was, or I should say an account that had, campaigns running in it. And they were able to either through typing or using like a voiced prompt, ask it to build a specific like dashboard widget for them for a reporting standpoint to give them the insights that they were looking for without somebody actually having to go in and sort of like manually make the selection, choose the individual dimensions that they wanted. But utilizing AI for everyday stuff like that is amazing in a way, because now you've just sort of instantly built out, your dashboard, and you did it with a prompt. What I think, to Vanessa's point, a lot of people, when they hear about AI and they hear it in the context of creative, they're thinking about just building creative or variations or something along those lines. But when you look at it for things like that, I think my mind just starts to like almost explode seeing things along those lines, where I'm just like, oh my God, it's for everything, right?
My future state of AI and what I dream for is that capability, that dashboarding and that reporting. I mean, AI hands down can look and analyze more information than my little tiny human brain could ever imagine. And so what you're talking about, Jessica, just excites me so much. That the future for AI and what it means not just for creative but for all of our marketing is incredible. Now, we're getting close to the end of our interview, and there's so much we've talked about so far. And if you could sum it up to what is it that should really make CMOs excited about the current state of creative and what they can do with creative, what would that one thing be? Vanessa, let's start with you.
I think the thing that marketing leaders and CMOs can get excited about is the fact that creative is finally getting the recognition that it deserves as a business driver. I think for years, creative was almost like the sort of Trojan horse of marketing effectiveness. And now we have the data, we have the tools, we have the technology to prove what we've always known. We've always known that great creative is the best competitive edge that a brand can have. I said edge, competitive advantage that a brand can have. So I think what they should get excited about is, I guess, that the most creative brands will be the most profitable one. And I guess maybe they should get excited about that because that's a reality that we can prove, or maybe that's the future that I want to see. I don't know which one it is. But ultimately, I feel like that's it. I think creative is finally getting that recognition as a business driver, and marketers should get excited about like going into the boardroom and actually proving the value of the creative work that they've done.
Jessica, what about from your side?
Well, I'm just going to bring it right back to our art and science conversation. And my advice would be to lean into technology, but ensure your partners bring transparency to the table. When used strategically, technology can elevate your creative efforts by enabling personalized, data-driven content at scale. It can automate time-consuming tasks, analyze performance in real time, and optimize every step of the creative process, making your campaigns more efficient and impactful. And that said, technology is really only valuable if you have full visibility into how it's being utilized and the results it's driving. So transparency from your partners, whether it's in data sharing, performance metrics, or campaign optimization, really ensures you can make informed decisions and adjust strategies as needed. And this openness helps you track progress. It pinpoints what's working. You can identify areas for improvement. And this lays the groundwork for sustainable growth. Ultimately, while tech is essential, transparent collaboration with your partners is what will truly unlock its potential and drive that long-term success.
Would you say that this was something that was possible even a year ago?
I think yes. I mean, from at least Clinch's side, like, we've always offered transparency into how we're optimizing and how performance is working within the platform. I'm not saying everybody out there, but there's a lot of black box sort type of situations going on with a lot of companies where you're putting your trust in that it works. But if you can see like how something's working and why it's working, you're more likely to adopt it and accept it. And perhaps this is why some people haven't been leaning into allowing technology to do things for them, because they have trouble sort of accepting or proving it in a way, right?
It's really looking at, you know, again, going back to what we've just said and what Jessica mentioned, the whole idea of like finding the right partners, and I think that there is something that needs to be said around going from a sort of like vendor partnership into sort of like, well, not vendor partnership, sorry, let me bring that back. I think there is something to be said around going from a vendor to partner relationship. And I think it ties up a little bit of everything that we've talked about around transparency, around being able to really see what's happening and where the cost saving is happening and where the creative ROI is gained. But if I had to say one thing is, again, let's change that mindset of creative being an expense, because if marketers themselves think that creative is an expense, then how are they going to convince anyone else in the C-suite that it's not, you know? Going back to my point earlier, you know, it's an investment that compounds returns. And if a CFO is not cutting the budgets for high-performing media spend, then why would they cut creative if they know that it's the number one driver of ad performance? Do you know what I mean? So I think if anything, finding the partners that enable you or empower you to have that level of insight in terms of what really drives business impact with the right data, with the right level of transparency, with the right technology that enables that transparency, you know, it will make decision making around creative much, much easier. And that goes back to the idea of being able to quantify intelligence. It's not going to be about what feels right, and creatives are not going to be seen as like people that just put the finger in the air and just like see where the wind is blowing from a creative standpoint, but actually doing that with creative intelligence that's tech powered, but also anchored, you know, in human craft. And I think that is it. That's what I'm seeing is what's key to get the best out of creative.
What you said is so incredibly powerful, Vanessa. This idea that finding the right partner will enable your success. They will be there and be your bedrock to make sure that you fully understand and have transparent insight into what you are doing with your marketing and with your creative. I think it's an incredible point that should not be undervalued. Cool. So we have come close to the end. Now, there are two questions that we ask all of our guests, so please bear with me. The first one is, what is your favorite ad campaign of all time? Jessica, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, okay. This is going to sound so ridiculous, but hear me out. Hear me out. It's Budweiser's What's Up?
I remember that
That is a
campaign.
really good one. Good one.
It's because,
I
okay,
love
so
it.
this campaign, it was a cultural phenomenon, right? In the early 2000s. So they had that catchphrase. It was everywhere. It's a group of friends greeting each other with the signature "What's up," and it went viral. It was there. You had countless parodies. It was everywhere. Movies, TV shows. People would be saying it to each other in public at parties, and it helped reinforce Budweiser's image as like a fun social beer for young adults. But listen, I don't even drink Budweiser, right? I don't even drink it. But they found a way to be sticky and memorable and connecting with people like me, you know, just for laughs, who are not even a brand loyalist. And I do have a strong second though. A strong second is the original Life Alert, I've fallen and I can't get up commercial. So this is supposed to totally be serious, right? Yet somehow this iconic phrase managed to work its way into pop culture. And both of these are just like these excellent examples of how a brand used creative to just capture the attention of so many people that are not even maybe interested in the brands at all or have a need for them.
Do you know what's so interesting about your second one is that I completely forgot that came from an ad campaign. You know, something becomes so ingrained in your day to day life or just your knowledge that you just assume it kind of came from anything. Vanessa, what about you?
There's two ads that I can think of. Um, One of them, being my favorite, I think, is it's called Streams of Lactation. It's very, very specific. It's biomechanism. It was for a brand called Freedom Moms. And it was a brilliant piece of creative work because it kind of like had um, that bold aspect to it. It was culture shifting. It was deeply human. And I think that's the kind of creative that I want to see more of. I think they had another ad that actually got banned from the Super Bowl. Like it was an ad showing a mom that just gave birth and like couldn't walk or whatever. Like they just banned it, I think. But ultimately, I'm not a mom, but I learned a lot about breastfeeding in that ad. So I really do recommend just people watching it. And I guess the other one, and it's a testament to consistency and a testament to like making the boring stick. It's Geico. I don't know, like if you're not American, maybe, and I'm not American, but I've spent a lot of summers in the US, but that a 15-minute call could save you 15% or more on car insurance is like that thing that like has stuck with me for the last 20 years in like, you've basically made something that's so boring and that's like, it's insurance. And it's a Geico in the ad saying that, but like literally it's in your mind. It's like, literally, I could save 15% of my car insurance if I spend 15 minutes on the phone with someone. And it's a testament to consistency and the fact that they've literally kept it's the same slogan, it's the same thing. They've kept it for like the last 20 years and it's still the same and it still works. And that's something that I can't say is my favorite, but that's something that I really admire by way of consistency.
Yeah, they definitely have nailed that kind of. Somebody who is American, Jessica, you could probably speak to this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I've been seeing that
they
commercial since I was a kid. I can picture the gecko. Like, these are all things that are so ingrained in us and so.
well, they had like a caveman one before that, and that was pretty popular too. So they've managed to, have back to back sort of success. But the gecko has stayed for a while with the other one. Um, I think some brands do a good job of this too sometimes, but then they almost do too good of a job to where you don't even remember who the brand is. And I think that's a miss sometimes, right? Where you're just like, I don't even know what brand that was, but I remember that catchphrase from that commercial. So there's a balance for sure.
Yeah, I definitely don't think Geico's one of those.
No, not at all.
Okay, my last question. What is your favorite piece of tech? Now, this doesn't have to be marketing tech. This could be any tech you use in your day to day life. It might even be something you're not able to use because it's either wildly expensive or just very rare.
I'm going to be super corny, and I'm going to say it's Clinch. And some people might laugh at that, but I've been doing this for over 20 years now. This year is my 21st year working in ad serving. And I can honestly say that I'm still blown away by what our tech can do and sort of like how we continue to push forward. I think I've been here almost 3 years now. And within that amount of time, it's almost as if I'm reinventing myself to learn more and do more because the product does continue to excel and grow. And I haven't had that at anywhere else that I've worked before. So I really am appreciative to be part of this team.
That's really nice. You don't hear many people who talk about their business like that.
Yeah. And I think many people that I work with can say that for real and be honest about it. So I feel good working for a place like that.
Amazing. Vanessa?
The thing that like I'm enjoying and I'm looking into, it's biometric triggered advertising. I think the idea that like you could imagine advertising that would be responsive to like say your heart rate or your mood or your energy levels. I think that's something that like I'm super curious about. I can't say that's my favorite tech because I don't even know how much of a reality it is. But I would love to be able to, experience things that match my energy, to put it in like Gen Z talk. Like it's like if you keep the same energy as like where I am right now when I'm scrolling, and you're able to match that, but like deliver something that like builds up on that, like I absolutely would, would love that. And I think that's what I'm sort of looking at. And that and neural interfaces, but it scares me also, so I'm not too keen on that just yet. I'm just looking at it to see what's happening with the whole idea of mind crafting things as opposed to handcrafting them.
Your point on advertising based on your biometrics and your heart rate raising is a whole nother conversation about whether or not we can take personalization too far. Personalization is amazing, but also can be a bit intrusive at times. But we're getting so many more data points, aren't we? And the stuff we're going to be able to do with them in the future is incredible. Amazing. Thank you both so much. I've really had a pleasure talking to you both today. And a huge thanks for sharing your thoughts on how businesses can harness creative to drive business profitability. For those of you who want to dive deeper into this topic, our recent article, Why Creative is the Dark Horse of Business Growth, is live on our site and explores the relationship between creative and marketing effectiveness. Be sure to give it a read. And as always, don't forget to follow us on social or visit our website at incubeta.com for more updates and insights. Until next time, I'm Lisa Morton, and this has been The Digital Edge. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.